The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was silent unnaturally, so as Ambassador Lyra Caldwell, the only human present, rose slowly from her seat. Hundreds of eyes from dozens of species watched her, some curious, most tense. The Council had just passed Resolution 4921, a law that would allow neural compliance systems to be installed on developing species mind control technology, dressed up in the language of stability and advancement. Many delegates clapped quietly, some smiled. But Lyra didn't. She stood tall in the center of the polished obsidian floor, her gaze sharp, not angry, but colder, like the quiet before a winter storm. "We warned you," she said, her voice clear and steady. "Humanity will not be part of this." A murmur rippled through the chamber, but Lyra didn't wait. She turned and walked toward the high arched doors at the rear of the hall. As she did, the entire human delegation, scientists, translators, peacekeepers, security, even the cooks, stood and followed. No one said a word. They didn't shout. They didn't make threats. They just walked out. A moment later, all human ships across Council space, thousands of them, turned and began to leave orbit. Every station with human personnel received a single message: return home. Operation Severance is in effect. And they obeyed. The Council sat in confusion. Ambassador Rethkor of the Karathi Confederacy laughed aloud, a sharp, screeching sound. They always were emotional. "Let them go. We'll adapt." Some nodded in agreement. A few species clapped again, but not all. The older races, the Sarathari, the Thole, and especially the Vexari elders, did not speak. They only stared at the doors where Lyra had vanished, and a chill passed through them. The Vexari Grand Elder leaned close to his aide and whispered, "You don't understand. They didn't leave because they're mad. They left because we crossed the line. They're disappointed." Meanwhile, far above the chamber, in the orbiting human embassy ship Equinox, systems were shutting down in sequence. Diplomatic channels closed. Research agreements were voided. Medical assistance missions canceled. Earth had activated Protocol Red Veil, a complete severing of interstellar contact. By the end of the day, no one in the galaxy could reach a single human colony or vessel. Earth itself, once the diplomatic heart of dozens of peace treaties, went dark. It was not cloaked in war, but in silence. The silence was worse. The Council tried to recover quickly. New teams were dispatched to maintain balance in regions once stabilized by humans. Alliances were reshuffled. Trade continued. But in the dark corners of the galaxy, tension rose. Pirates began probing abandoned sectors. Old feuds rekindled. On the planet Trassel 5, a minor war broke out within a week of human withdrawal. The Council responded with drones and declarations, but results were weak. The humans had held the threads together, not with dominance, but with presence. Now those threads were fraying. Still, most Council members believed this was temporary. "They'll come back," said Chancellor Viral of the Ruined Federation during a summit. "Humans crave influence. They won't stay away for long." But no human answered. No signals. No messengers. Just the cold void of space. And then came the first ripple. On the edge of the Alvarian expanse, automated sensors picked up strange activity. Patterns in radiation, gravity spikes, movement in dead zones. A listening post, once manned by humans, had gone offline. When a scout ship arrived days later, it found nothing, just scorched hulls and twisted metal, as if something had passed through and erased everything. No survivors. No data. Just silence again. Whispers began to circulate, rumors of an ancient threat returning. The name Karkathi Swarm surfaced in hushed voices. A race not seen in over 2 centuries. The last time they were active, it had taken a combined fleet, mostly human-led, to stop them. The swarm had vanished after that battle, afraid to touch human space again. But now, with humans gone, they were stirring. As the Council met in emergency session, someone asked the obvious question: what if this was why the humans left? That thought landed like ice in the chamber. Had Earth seen this coming? Was that why they warned the Council not to tamper with developing species? Had they known the swarm would sense weakness? As questions mounted, so did fear. For the first time in generations, the Council felt the true weight of being alone. A galaxy without humans wasn't just quieter, it was more dangerous. The last official act of the humans played again on every Council channel, Lyra, standing tall, calm, unblinking, saying just 8 words. Humanity will not be part of this. Simple. Final. And as the lights dimmed in the council hall and the stars outside pulsed faintly in the void, an old ambassador from the Thole species blind, ancient, nearly forgotten, spoke softly to himself. The parents have left the house, and the children are playing with fire. Across the stars, a strange quiet spread like a slow shadow, unnoticed at first, like the calm before a storm that no one sees coming. When the humans left the Galactic Council, many believed it would pass just a political tantrum, some said, a diplomatic protest. But as weeks turned to months, the silence grew louder. Planets once guided by human advisors found themselves confused and leaderless. Peace treaties, balanced carefully by human negotiators, began to shake. Pirates began attacking minor trade routes in the Rim worlds, knowing the human patrols that once scared them were gone. On Drellon, IV, the communication hub that once connected 14 systems, started to fail. No one could repair the hybrid human tech relays. Efforts to restore it failed because only human engineers understood the core code. Messages were delayed, calls unanswered, sectors dark. On Agrin Prime, a rebellion broke out after 3 decades of peace. The Council sent drones and enforcers, but they lacked the human touch. No one could calm the fire, and the flames spread. As more systems fell into unrest, leaders started asking a question they were afraid to speak aloud: had the galaxy depended too much on the humans? The Council tried to hide the truth. Publicly, they declared all was under control. Privately, they sent secret envoys toward Earth, desperate for even a whisper from the human governments. None returned. Earth had not just walked away, it had sealed its doors. No transmissions. No signals. Even the satellites at the edge of soul space stopped responding. Across the galaxy, people started to feel the absence like a missing sun. And then came something worse. Deep in the Obsidian Drift, an old listening station picked up a strange signal, a low, pulsing noise, almost like breathing. It lasted exactly 7 minutes, then stopped. The station tried to trace it, but the signal bent space around it. A scout ship was sent. It vanished. A second followed and sent back one picture, a black shape, too massive to measure, moving slowly through space like a living shadow. Then it, too, went silent. Old species began to worry. The Karkathi swarm, long thought destroyed or dormant, matched the signal pattern. The last war with them had ended over 2 centuries ago when humans had faced them and somehow forced them back beyond the edges of mapped space. No one knew how. The humans never explained. But after that battle, the swarm disappeared. Now, with humanity gone, the swarm returned. Slowly at first, just whispers in the void, missing ships, empty stations, but the pattern was clear. They were testing, probing, learning. On Vexal 3, a Council military outpost went dark. When drones arrived, the planet was empty. Not destroyed, emptied. No signs of battle. No screams. Just silence. Something had come and taken everything. The Council panicked. Emergency meetings were held, fleets mobilized, old war machines reactivated. But their weapons were outdated, their strategies weak. The swarm had learned from the past. And the defenders lacked the one thing that had once terrified the Karkathi, humans. Desperate, the Council sent a message across deep space emergency channels, coded in every known language: "Humanity, if you are listening, we need you." But there was no answer. Just silence. On the planet Tasari 9, a scientist named Ellen Jor uncovered old human war logs, encrypted files left in case of planetary emergencies. She cracked them using primitive AI tools, and what she found stunned her. Battle data showing how humans had predicted the swarm's reawakening decades in advance. The data showed patterns, simulations, and strategies for how to counter it. Ellen shared the information, but it was already too late. The swarm was advancing toward Council space. Panic spread. Systems began shutting their borders. Refugees fled inward. Defense fleets failed to hold the lines. And still, no humans. Some began to ask if they had simply left the galaxy, abandoned it forever. The outer edge of the spiral arm, a freighter captain named Relin, swore he saw a human ship, a black, silent cruiser drifting near a nebula. But when he hailed it, it vanished. He returned with scans, but no one believed him. A ghost, they said. But a few began to wonder if the humans were still out there, watching. On Council Prime, Chancellor Yethri, once one of the loudest voices supporting Resolution 4921, now paced his private chamber in fear. He remembered the calm look on Lyra Caldwell's face the day she walked out. Not anger. Not hatred. Something worse, disappointment. As if she knew this would happen. As if she had seen it before. Now, as systems fell and silence replaced the hum of life, Yethri realized too late what humanity had been: not conquerors, not overlords, but guardians. Quiet, careful, dangerous guardians. And when the Council passed laws that broke their code, they didn't fight, they just left. Because they knew. Without them, the galaxy would fall apart. Now it was happening. And then as the swarm crept closer to the heart of Council space, the stars seemed dimmer and the silence heavier. Everyone waited. For war. For help. For something. But nothing came. Only the dark. Only the cold. Only the deep, endless silence where once the humans had stood. The fires started on the edges of known space, burning slowly at first, unnoticed by most, but then they grew bright and wild, until even the Council could not pretend everything was fine anymore. The Carcathy swarm moved like a storm through the void, striking in patterns that seemed random at first, but soon revealed a cruel intelligence, one that adapted to every defense, countered every strategy, and studied every weakness with frightening precision. Entire fleets vanished in hours, defense stations ripped open like paper, and planets were not just attacked, they were emptied, their populations taken or erased without trace. The Council, once confident in its technology and military strength, found itself helpless. Worlds that had stood for centuries fell in days, their cries for help echoing across comm channels that no longer reached anyone who could save them. On the planet Exalara, the Grand Chancellor Yethri stood in the ruins of the High Command's war room, staring at the last broadcast from Tasari Enclave, a peaceful world of over 8 billion, now facing total destruction. The broadcast showed burning skies, screaming families, and black shapes blotting out the stars, each one a piece of the swarm's vast body. Council fleets had been sent, but none had survived. As Tasari's signal grew weaker, one last message was sent, desperate and final: there is no one left to stop them. And just as the feed cut out, something happened. The stars over Tasari blinked, as if something had moved between them and the observers. At first, it was dismissed as interference. But then a new shape appeared in orbit, something not from any Council fleet. It was a ship huge, silent, and unlike any vessel seen before. Black as space, smooth and unmarked, it hovered above the burning planet like a shadow given form. It did not respond to hails. It made no announcements. But in seconds, the swarm ships began to vanish. No explosions, no debris, just disappearance. One by one, they flickered out, like candles in wind. The battle ended before anyone could understand what they had seen. The broadcast ended with a single, final image: the unknown ship turning in the light of Tasari's burning atmosphere, then jumping away into hyperspace. For hours, the Council debated. Was it a weapon? A new threat? A forgotten relic? But then a small probe drifted into orbit around Council Prime, old and slow. It carried no weapons, no technology beyond the simplest systems. But it bore a single mark, the human symbol for message. The probe was brought into the Council chamber, and its data was accessed in silence. Inside was a video, short and simple. It showed an old human quote displayed over black: You voted for a galaxy without humanity. You have it. Then a still image followed, a child sitting alone in a room, holding a broken toy, while adults walked away in the background. No threats. No demands. Just a picture. And a sentence. The room was still for a long time after the message played. Some laughed nervously. Others looked pale. But one voice spoke from the back, Ambassador Relic of the Vexari, his tone grim. This is not a warning. It's a truth. They're not angry. They've moved beyond anger. Across the galaxy, rumors spread fast. Ships claimed to see strange vessels patrolling dark space, sleek and silent, never attacking unless provoked, but always appearing just before disaster. On the planet Ryloth, a swarm seed ship was seconds from impact when it simply vanished. Survivors swore they saw a flash of blue light and a massive black figure in the sky. On Harnack Station, pirates were planning an attack on a colony when every screen on the station flashed with human symbols, then went dark. The pirates abandoned their mission. No one had to tell them twice. The humans hadn't returned to rule. They hadn't come back to fix the galaxy. They were doing something far worse. They were watching, choosing when and if to act. The Council tried to send envoys again, tried to apologize, to negotiate. Earth never replied. Not because they didn't hear, but because they had already answered. And their answer was silence. In a private meeting, Chancellor Yethri stood before a wall of failed plans and battle maps and asked the question everyone feared to say aloud: are we no longer the masters of our fate? No one answered, because now they understood the truth. The humans had not been powerful because of their weapons or numbers. They had been powerful because of how they thought, how they planned, how they refused to give up even when others would. And now, having been dismissed, ignored, and insulted, they had removed themselves not in rage, but in resolve. They would not fix what was broken. They would not rebuild the house, but they would not let the fire reach the neighbors. The galaxy had been given what it asked for: a future without humans. And now that it had it, the cost was clear. In the quiet spaces between stars, in the stillness after battles, there was now something more terrifying than war. There was the knowledge that somewhere out there, in the dark, the humans still watched. Not gods. Not monsters. But something else entirely, something that had once tried to be part of the family and had walked away instead. And in their absence, the galaxy finally realized what it had lost. The sky over Veltrin Prime burned orange as the swarm descended, black ships, like sharp knives falling through the clouds, their long shadows stretching across the city's broken walls and streets filled with fleeing people. Council defenses had fallen in less than a day, their energy shields useless against the swarm's ever-changing weapons. The city's last stronghold sent one final broadcast before its signal was cut: no cries for help, just the words, "We have no more to give." Across the galaxy, leaders watched the fall of Veltrin in silence, unable to help, unwilling to admit defeat, wondering if it would be their world next. The Karkathi swarm was not just conquering, it was hunting, and it was learning faster than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Council fleets retreated to safer systems, and even those were no longer safe. Refugees flooded planets that could barely feed their own people. Pirate groups, warlords, and old enemies took advantage of the chaos. Order crumbled. But just as the darkness seemed ready to swallow what was left of civilization, something unexpected happened. In the shadows of Veltrin's ruined skies, a pulse of blue light flickered through the smoke. Then another. And then, without warning, the entire battlefield froze, literally. Swarm ships halted in the air, movement locked in place, caught in a field of unknown energy. No weapons fired. No signals were sent. And then, above the burning city, a shape appeared, long, angular, dark as midnight, and silent as death. It was not made of council design or swarm architecture. It was human. The ship hovered without sound, and a low hum followed, rising from deep within the clouds. Across the stars, in war zones, ruins, and abandoned spaceports, other ships like it began to appear. One by one, Black human vessels emerged from hidden places, uncharted moons, dead systems, and deep nebulae, each one arriving without fanfare, without warning. And everywhere they went, the swarm vanished. Not in battle, not in fire, simply gone. The galaxy held its breath. On Council Prime, the chamber filled for the first time in weeks, and a message finally arrived, not on open channels, not through translation tech, but through a simple code placed directly into every system's central network. 5 words only: this is no longer yours. It was not a threat. It was not a call for war. It was a statement, cold and final. Humanity had returned, not with banners, not with applause, but with precision. The humans who walked away were not the same who had come back. They were older, quieter, sharper. They brought no ambassadors, no diplomats. Instead, they moved with purpose. Silent fleets flew through the void, cleaning up what was left of the chaos. Human AI units arrived on broken worlds, fixing power grids, restoring water, sealing off collapsed mines. No one knew where they had come from. No one knew how they had learned to fight the swarm so easily. But the swarm was dying, that much was clear. Reports came in from Varthus and Drelok swarm hives imploding from within, their control systems collapsing. Scientists from old council labs examined the remains and found traces of foreign code deep in the swarm's hive mind, human code, laced through like a poison. The humans hadn't just defeated the swarm, they had rewritten it. In private meetings, council leaders argued. Should they welcome the humans back? Should they try to speak with them? Apologize? But every attempt to reach Earth or its fleets was met with silence. Not even hostility, just silence. Earth remained sealed. Human colonies refused visitors. Their ships did not dock at ports, did not request supplies, did not respond to signals. They arrived, did what needed to be done, and left. On the moon colony of Barath, a human unit restored the entire planetary defense grid in under 6 hours, then vanished before the local government could even thank them. On Vexerai Station, a human AI appeared in the mainframe, cleared a virus, and locked out all external access before disappearing. Slowly, the galaxy began to understand the humans were not returning to join. They were returning to finish. They had no interest in restoring the Council or rebuilding the Galactic Order. They were not asking for votes, approval, or permission. They were cleaning up what the others had broken. They were not saving the galaxy for the galaxy's sake. They were doing it because they couldn't allow the chaos to grow any further. And that terrified everyone, because it meant the humans had outgrown the Council. They had become something else, something higher, something colder. A new kind of force. Not an empire, not an enemy, a judgment. On the distant world of Artis, a young boy stood among the ruins of his home, watching a tall, quiet figure in black armor help his injured mother. The man said nothing, just nodded once and walked away, disappearing into a waiting ship. The boy asked his mother, "Was that a human?" She nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. "Yes, I think it was." And in her voice was something strange, part fear, part hope. Because everyone now understood, the humans had not returned to ask for forgiveness or seek revenge. They had returned because they had warned the galaxy once and been ignored. And now they would not speak twice. In the deep black of space, long after the last swarm ship had vanished and silence once again ruled the stars, the galaxy began to breathe, but not in relief, for peace had come with a price none could truly name. The Council still existed in name, but it held no real power. Its halls were empty, its members quiet, and its laws ignored. Across thousands of worlds, whispers filled the air, not of fear but of awe, stories passed in shadows, in quiet corners of markets and under flickering lights in refugee camps. The humans had returned, not as saviors, not as tyrants, but as something older, something colder, and something unforgettable. No one dared approach Earth, for the system remained sealed behind a wall of unknown technology, guarded by ships that blinked in and out of sight like ghosts. No calls were answered, no ambassadors welcomed. But still, the galaxy remembered. It remembered how the swarm had fallen without a final battle, how entire worlds had been rebuilt overnight, how broken systems had healed under silent human hands. It remembered the ships black, sharp, perfect moving, like they were part of space itself. On abandoned battlefields, giant statues now stood tall, dark monoliths with no markings, placed exactly where the fighting had ended, facing the sky. They were made of unknown metal, unbreakable and silent, but when touched, some claimed they could hear a hum, like a low voice speaking not in words, but in memory. Scientists studied them. Politicians feared them. Children dreamed of them. They became known as the giant silent watchers that stood where humanity had acted. On the frozen world of Carthus, where once a swarm hive devoured everything in its path, an old woman wandered the snow and found one of these giants half buried in ice. She placed her hand on it, and for a brief second, her mind filled with images not of war, but of earth, green and alive, with skies filled with stars and cities of light. She wept, not in fear, but in sorrow, for she understood the humans had not left the galaxy in anger, but in grief. They had offered everything once: knowledge, peace, unity, and the galaxy had turned its back. When they returned, it was not to punish, but to prevent what they had seen coming. Now they were gone again, but not vanished, simply waiting, watching. Across the stars, civilizations rebuilt carefully. New leaders rose, not claiming power, but offering service, understanding that old pride had nearly destroyed everything. On the planet Lysari, a monument was built not to the Council, not to the fallen, but to those who had walked away and returned without seeking thanks. Its plaque read, "To the giants who remembered us, even when we forgot them." Schools began teaching human history again, not the official council version, but the real one. Stories of their strength, their sacrifice, and their silence. Pilgrimages began quiet journeys to the sites of the monoliths, not to worship, but to remember. On one such trip, a young girl named Alan touched a giant and felt warmth in her chest, as if someone far away had noticed her and was waiting. She said nothing, but she never forgot it. Time passed. The swarm was a memory, its threat erased from the galaxy like a bad dream. The council shrank into a historical body, more museum than government. A new alliance rose, not from power, but from understanding. Trade reopened. Peace held. But beneath it all was the unspoken truth. It had held because the humans had made it so. Their presence was rare, but always at the edge, one ship spotted above a starport, one encrypted message left in a failing system's core, one unknown drone arriving just in time to stop a reactor breach. Every time someone asked for help in silence, it came not from the Council, not from other powers, but from the void itself. And every time a new giant appeared afterward, marking the place where action had been taken. It was said that these giants were not statues, but markers, memories left by the humans, so the galaxy would never forget. On the anniversary of the last battle, the largest monolith of all appeared outside the ruins of the old council chamber. No ship had been seen placing it there. No signals were detected. It simply was. Taller than any building, smooth as glass, and darker than space, it stood with no message, no explanation. But people gathered around it in silence, placing their hands on its surface and whispering thanks. No one knew if the humans heard, but they hoped. And so, in the end, the galaxy did not fall. It did not collapse into chaos or return to war. It remembered. It learned. It endured. And in the quiet between stars, the memory of giants stood tall, silent, still, and eternal, reminding all who passed that once humanity had walked among them. And should they ever be needed again, the giants would wake.